This issue of state borders is not going to go away anytime soon. People are hurting, families are being divided, education is being interrupted, crucial medical care is jeopardised, businesses are in turmoil, and people are facing heartache, not to mention costly and widespread inconvenience. The National Cabinet discussed the issue today, and afterwards the Prime Minister promised that he would continue to intervene where necessary to make sure people who needed cross-border exemptions would get them.
I will continue to interact directly with premiers, particularly in South Australia, New South Wales and Victoria, and in Queensland, on individual cases, and I thank them for their cooperation as we've been working through those individual instances.
But this is no way to run a country. States closing off borders, hundreds of thousands of people's lives disrupted, and the Prime Minister having to intervene on individual cases. Madness. So the National Cabinet agreed to work on some new arrangements, some clearer rules.
Agreement today, the work today was about practically working together to resolve issues, often, if not entirely unintended, how the borders are put in place.
Yeah, this sure is a problem. The Prime Minister's hands are tied. He wants more certainty. He's made it clear all along he's lukewarm about state border restrictions, but he can't go too hard because in the end he doesn't have the power. If he demands borders are opened, the premiers will probably just call his bluff. The premiers can do as they please, and they all see a political dividend in keeping their borders secure. Little wonder then that Scott Morrison made the lines of accountability very clear.
All accountable for our own decisions. I'm accountable for the decisions that I make, and you're at liberty to ask me about them each and every time I appear here. But for decisions that are made by others and that are in the jurisdiction of others, then I'll let them speak for their own decisions.
There you have it, a fatal flaw in our federation laid bare. A Prime Minister cannot stop states closing their borders. What's the point of a federal government, we might ask, if states can overrule national decisions and restrict even free movement and free trade across state borders, something the Constitution would appear to rule out? We formed the Federation to prevent this sort of stuff. Let's hope we can work this out permanently for the next crisis. For now, we have to rely on premiers in other states to tell us when and if we can cross their borders. For instance, here's South Australian Premier Stephen Marshall today on when he'll lift rules that demand 2 weeks isolation for visitors from New South Wales and the ACT.
So this is something that the Transition Committee is continuing to look at. We're very focused on community transmission, and when that number gets down to an acceptable level, then I think that South Australians can feel confident that we will lift that restriction.
An acceptable level? The ACT has 0 active cases. New South Wales had 1 new case today. An acceptable level? If South Australia can't open its border today to these places, then Stephen Marshall's clearly not interested in national unity, social normalisation and economic progress. He's interested, like the state premiers in Queensland, Tasmania and Western Australia, in a COVID fortress approach. How long do they think this can last? Do any of these people consider we'll have to live with the virus for years? It's a very short-term and parochial attitude. And I think the backlash might take some time, but when it does come, it'll be pretty severe.